Rambo: Last Blood is the fifth installment in the Rambo franchise. Released in 2019, it was directed by Adrian Grunberg and stars Sylvester Stallone reprising his role as John Rambo, as he has to travel to Mexico to save his adopted daughter who has been kidnapped by a Mexican cartel. John Rambo now lives in Arizona in his deceased father's horse ranch, which he manages with his old friend Maria and her granddaughter Gabriella. Gabriella reveals to Rambo that a friend of hers, Giselle, has found Gabriella's biological father in Mexico. Against Rambo and Maria's wishes, Gabriella secretly drives to Mexico to ask why her father had abandoned her and her mother years ago. And guys, that is when all the shit starts to go down and where things really take a turn for the worse in this movie. So what did I think about Rambo: Last Blood? Well, I thought it was awesome. I'm a big fan of the Rambo franchise and Sylvester Stallone's movies in general, and I thought this one rocked. Sylvester Stallone here brings that old school feel back to action movies. You don't see a lot of this type of action movie coming out nowadays. Just had that real old school feel, not too much explaining and crap going on, just right to the point. Bad guys killed Stallone's daughter. He wants revenge. He goes and gets it. And this one's brutal. There's a ton of brutal violence in here. Stallone, I believe he was using a hammer at one point to just totally brutalize this Mexican cartel who had trafficked his adopted daughter. And Rambo went in, he got his daughter back, even decapitated one of the lead henchmen. There were two brothers at the top of the syndicate. He decapitated one of them, and then the other one went back to Rambo's ranch right near the end of the movie to get his revenge. Yvette Monreal, who played Stallone's adopted daughter, Gabriella, I thought she was really good in this movie. She had a lot of harrowing and hard scenes to play when she was being trafficked by this bunch of a-holes. And they showed quite a lot in this movie. It had an R18 rating, and they pretty much did use that to the fullest extent. They really did. Stallone even said that he cut out some scenes that were just too graphic and it was just going too over the top. But this movie pulled no punches. Basically, early on in the movie, Stallone's adopted daughter wants to go and see her father, and Stallone says, no, that's not a good idea. He's a real jerk. Don't do that. And she says she won't, but she does end up going down there, meets up with her so-called friend, who's just a total piece of crap. Giselle, she dobs her in and basically allows her to be trafficked by this cartel. And when Stallone sees that she hasn't come home, Gabriella hasn't come home, he's like, right, he's got to go down there to Mexico and find out where she is. And he does find out where she is, and you'll see that part in the trailer where he's surrounded by 20 guys, 30 guys, and Stallone gets beaten down big time in that scene. He gets absolutely brutalized. But there is a woman, Carmen, a journalist, who helps him out. Her sister, I believe, in the story, she had been trafficked. So she really knew what Stallone was going through, so she helped him out. But Stallone took a really big beating. But he did get back up on his feet. And that's the part where I say where he goes in to rescue his daughter, Gabriella, where she's being kept. He goes in and gets her, destroys absolutely everybody in his path in the most brutal way you can imagine. Stallone is brutal in this movie. Absolutely brutal. Decapitates one of the henchmen. As I say, the two a-holes at the top, they're brothers. So one brother is left alive, and then he comes back to fight Stallone back at Stallone's ranch. And that's where shit really hits the fan right at the end of the movie. A ton of action at the end, and Stallone is at his brutal best. How brutal? Well, Stallone rigs up his entire property with bombs and explosives. He's got some underground tunnels where he is too. Everything's rigged up. You got about 30, 40 guys coming after him, but he just totally takes them all out. He's prepared. It's Rambo old school, like from First Blood, kind of. And I was talking about how Stallone gets brutal here. Well, how I mentioned before about one of the brothers is still alive to come back and get Stallone. Well, he nails him with his bow and arrow, traps him up against his barn door by shooting arrows at him. Gets his knife out, cuts a massive hole in his chest, and he actually literally puts his hand into this guy's chest, into his body, and he rips out his heart, and you see it in Stallone's hands. It's awesome. It's totally awesome. As I say, you don't see action movies like this nowadays. It's just straight to the point. There's no real explaining going on. It's just good guy, bad guy, I'm coming to get you, end of story. So my final rating for this movie, well, it's an 8 out of 10 for me, no doubt about it. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of Sylvester Stallone, as I say, and the Rambo franchise, so I liked it. Critics are crapping on this movie. Of course they would. But who cares? Critics are stupid anyway, right? It's the fans that really matter. And as far as I can see, a lot of the fans are really enjoying this movie for its old school feel and what Stallone brought to the big screen here. And a cool another bit to mention here too is how right at the end of the movie when the credits were rolling, they had like a whole montage of all the 5 Rambo movies that have been so far, right from First Blood right up to Last Blood. So they show clips from all those movies rolling through the credits, so that was cool, a nice touch there. Stallone says it will be the last one, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, right? Now, if I was to rank the Rambo franchise, here's how I would rank the 5 movies. I'd have Rambo Part 4, that'd be at number 5 for me. For whatever reason, just didn't quite hit the mark for me there. At number 4, Rambo 3, as part of the original trilogy, not quite as strong as the first 2 movies. However, there were some good moments in Rambo Part 3, no doubt about that. I would put Rambo Last Blood, this movie, at number 3, a really good entry into the franchise. Now, number 1 and number 2 are really subjective. Both are really great movies. It just depends what you prefer. So I would put Rambo First Blood at number 2, and my top movie would be First Blood Part 2. But those first 2 movies definitely are the best in the series, in my opinion. I think they are both very strong movies, but I do go with Rambo First Blood Part 2. Grew up with that one. An awesome movie. Thanks guys for tuning into the video. Be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will catch you next time.